Hey guys, I just wanted to share this deck because it's not a deck that you would usually see. It's a Divine Intervention deck, so its main goal is to get Divine Intervention out on the field, which, okay. So it gets 2 counters when you play it. And when you remove the last counter, the game is considered a draw. So that's like the main goal of this deck, is just to get that. It's not based on winning or losing, or its goal isn't to win or lose. Although its goal is to never win, I guess you could say. Yeah, so I had a friend help me streamline it and make it a little better than it was originally. So it's how you're going to get Divine Intervention on the field is you're going to get Academy Rector, if it'll focus. Nope, it doesn't want to focus. There we go. So Academy Rector, or so you play Academy Rector, or you can play Lost Auramancers. Lost Auramancers is way cheaper than Academy Rector, which is why I have a playset of those and only one Academy Rector, is because that's just too expensive. And also because Academy or Lost Auramancers kind of feeds in with the counter game that we play. So it comes into play with 3 time counters on it. And when you remove the last one, you can search your library for an enchantment card and put it into the field. So you're going to want to use Hex Parasite or Vampire Hexmage to remove the counters from Lost Auramancers. And then search for Divine Intervention and put it on a field, and use Hex Parasites or Vampire Hexmages to remove the counters off of Divine Intervention. Everything else in the deck is just sort of support that combo, I guess you could call it. This, I put Terminus in, but it's really a replaceable card. You could put anything in place of Terminus. I just found that I liked Terminus as like a board clear, sort of. There's Tidehollow Sculler, which will help you look at your opponent's hand, hopefully for creature removal or enchantment removal, or something like Surgical Extraction would really wreck this deck. So then you got Unburial Rites, which can also be used to help with Tidehollow Sculler if they get destroyed, or it can bring back a Vampire Hexmage. You can use it twice. So if they had a lot of creature removal, you just keep bringing back a Vampire Hexmage, because your main goal is to remove the counters off those. Yeah, so that helps with that. You got Swords to Plowshare, which will exile. It'll help you remove creatures, and it gives your opponents life, but that doesn't really matter because you're not trying to win. You can also destroy one of your own creatures if you need life, but I don't think that would be very helpful with this deck because they're not very the creatures aren't very powerful. I think the strongest one is Lost Auramancers at a 3/3. So that's that. It's mostly for your opponents, get their creatures out of the way, or if they have like Fiend Hunter or something like that, and take your cards. Silent Arbiter, that one's pretty good for if you're facing against someone with lots of creatures. You can kind of funnel them a bit, like funnel them through the hot gates. There's Open the Vaults, which will help with if you do lose your Divine Interventions. You can just put them back with Open Vaults. It does cost 6, but that's still less than Divine Intervention, which costs 8. Obzedat's Aid can also return target permanent. That's target permanent, so it can return anything you want. This one is artifact and enchantment. So even if you have like Hex Parasite in the graveyard and Divine Intervention in the graveyard, you can bring them both back to the field and then use oops, let me focus here. Uh-oh. She doesn't want to focus. There we go. Okay, so it returns them all to the field. Artifact and enchantments. So it will return both Divine Intervention and Hex Parasite if they're in the graveyard, and then you can just use Hex Parasite to remove the counters off of Divine Intervention. If Divine Intervention is exiled, you're screwed. You might want to put in, there's a card that removes cards from exile and puts them in the graveyard, but it's a white card that I'm thinking of. I forget what it's called, but that's just too much. Like, you would have to have that card and either one of these cards, Obzedat's Aid or Open the Vaults, to put Divine Intervention back into play, and there's just too many stacks. Like, your opponent's just going to finish you off before you can get that. Or the chances of it happening, or of you getting both that card and either one of these, is pretty low. And it also weakens the rest of the deck when you put in a card whose sole purpose is to take a card from exile and put it into the graveyard. Because then you still need another card to put it onto the field. Okay, so then you got Mortify, which can help with destroy target creature or enchantment. So that'll help get rid of opponents, like if they have enchantments that turn your non-basics into mountains, Blood Moon. You could destroy that. You can destroy creatures if they have like a Fiend Hunter or something that's taking your stuff. You got Night's Whisper. You can draw 2 cards and pay 2 life. The one thing you don't want to draw with this deck is Divine Intervention. You want it in your library, and then you want to take it from your library and put it on the field with Lost Auramancers or Academy Rector. If it's in your hand, it's basically useless until you get 8 mana on the field. It is useless until you get 8 mana on the field. So if you're in your opening hand, if you draw Divine Intervention, you just mulligan right off, because it's not worth keeping in your opening hand. You want it in the deck. You want both in the deck, and then if you draw one throughout the game with like Night's Whisper or something, you still have one in the deck, hopefully. If you draw them both, well, then you're just waiting for 8 mana, which is... Or if you draw it in your opening hand and you like your hand, you can wait 1 turn until you have 8 cards and then put Divine Intervention in the graveyard. But I don't recommend that, because you're waiting a turn and you would have to draw one of these to bring it back out of the graveyard. Or a card like takes it out of the graveyard and puts it in your hand, which defeats the purpose of putting it in the graveyard in the first place, because it just goes back to your hand rather than on the field. But yeah, I guess that could be, in a very specific circumstance, that could be a strategy. Okay, so then there is the land base, which, let me sort, I gotta straighten this out a bit. Uh-oh, I'm just making it worse. Yep. Alright, well, that's just gonna have to, there we go. That's straighter than they were, I guess. Alright, so Temple of Silence, mostly for the scry, so that you can see what you're going to draw. Hopefully you put Divine Intervention on the bottom. You got Tainted Field, which requires a swamp to tap for colored, so that's why I have 7 swamps and 1 plains. Although if you're playing against someone who turns your non-basics into other land, like if it makes it so that you can't tap for those colors, you may want to replace a swamp with a plains and maybe put a couple evolving wilds in, or terramorphic expanse, or anything that'll search for a basic that you want. And then you want 2 plains, because you're going to want 2 white sources for Lost Auramancers or Divine Intervention if it gets that dire. Terminus maybe, but that's replaceable, so it doesn't matter. You can put something else in place of that. Open the Vaults also requires 2 white. And yeah, that's that. Isolated Chapel, Godless Shrine, and Caves of Koilos. Also Bojuka Bog, which helps with people who have like graveyard interactions. Oh, I am not focusing. That's better, but the glare is so bad. Alright, so Bojuka Bog is... that helps with, exiling your opponent's graveyards. I would, if I wanted to spend more money on Magic, which I don't, but if I did, I would replace Caves of Koilos. I would take Caves of Koilos, and I would take 1 Isolated Chapel and just put a playset of Godless Shrines in, because Godless Shrine is better than both of those lands. Yeah, if you... So that's my 60 card deck. I'll put the deck list in the description. And I also have a commander deck, if anyone's interested in that. I'll put the link to my untapped, or tapped out page with the deck list. And I'll also just put the deck list in the description. Yeah, that's basically it. I only have 1 Academy Rector because they're so expensive. I think I already said that, but I would recommend Lost Auramancers just because it also, there's so much counter removal. You can just remove the counters, but if you're like really competitive with a deck that's meant to not win or lose the game, I don't understand. But if you wanted to be really competitive, I would probably put more of these in and not as many of these. But I mean, it doesn't make sense to be competitive with a deck designed to just draw the game. Like, it's just not, doesn't make any sense to me anyway. Although that's probably ironic considering I'm the one who built the deck. Christ. Yeah, if you have any questions, comments, if you want to help me make it better, is there cards out there that'll make it even better? Let me know. If you want to just say I'm a big pile of trash for building a deck that doesn't have very much of a purpose. The main reason I built the deck is because I like the game, but I'm not competitive. I don't like to win or lose. It doesn't matter to me if I win or lose. So I just like to experience the game, and this deck is just lets me experience the game with friends. We just play it, and the game is, if you can get Divine Intervention off, it is considered a draw. So nobody wins or loses. You just play some cards down and you pick them back up after the game is over. And nobody won or lost. Although they do say that it feels like I lost. They lost when I use Divine Intervention and it works. They say it feels like they lost and I won, but I don't agree. Nobody won or lost is the purpose. So I also have my commander deck version that uses Zur the Enchanter. That's a 100 card deck. If you're interested in seeing that one, I can make an explanation of how I use that deck and lay it out like this. Yeah, if you have any comments, questions, insults, anything like that, I'd be interested in reading them. Maybe some upgrades. Did you know any card? Maybe someone who knows cards that will work better, and I could update it to maybe make it even better. But this has worked pretty well so far. I've had it for a while. I don't remember when I made it. It was a long time ago. But we still play Magic every so often. Me and my friends, so my friends and I, however you want to see it. So that's that. Yeah. See ya later.